I do believe that spring has finally sprung. So therefore it is time to do a little flower bed cleanup. And I have one flower bed in particular that is full of stuff that needs to be cleaned up, but I have kind of a different way of cleaning up flower beds than most people, and I will show you guys what I mean by that. But first, let me walk you through this flower bed and show you what I have growing in there, because there's some cool stuff in here. Here's the flower bed that we're going to be working on today. Let me walk you guys through what is growing in here, just so that you have a sense for how old this flower bed is. This is its second season, and so it's on its second year, and a lot of the things that are in here are perennials. They're going to come back from year to year, but I did have a few annuals, and I just need to kind of spruce it up because the temperatures are warming up, and I expect things to get going here pretty quick. I don't think we're in for any more really hard freezes. We may get a few more light frosts, but we're only 3 weeks from our average last frost date, which is March 22nd in north central Texas. So it really is time to kind of get in here and just spruce it up a little bit. Let me walk you guys from side to side to show you what I have here. This is lamb's ear. A lot of y'all will be familiar with this. All of the lamb's ear that is in this flower bed, I grew from seed. And lamb's ear, also known as stackies, is super easy to grow from seed. So if you want a lot of it in your garden, but you don't want to pay full price like at the garden center, you should try growing it from seed, because I had really good luck growing it from seed. And there's a lot of great things about lamb's ear. It's very drought tolerant. It's really tough. It's evergreen for me in zone 8. But my favorite part about it is the cover that it provides to the wildlife in my garden. So I don't ever put lamb's ear on irrigation, because it will honestly resent you for that if it stays consistently moist. It doesn't like that. And when I do go to water it, I water it from overhead. And when I do, it just boils up with spiders, frogs, toads, turtles. The way that this lamb's ear grows and clumps, it provides really good, cool shade and habitat for a bunch of different cool bugs and wildlife that come to my garden. So that's why I grow it, because there's always something cool living under it, and I like that. I want my garden to be a place that wildlife is drawn to and they want to stay and hang out, especially frogs and toads and turtles. I think that's all really cool. So that's why I have so much lamb's ear, is because it really supports the wildlife in my garden. Moving along from the lamb's ear, we just have a bunch of weeds. I think there's an ice plant in there somewhere. This was a purple fountain grass. And I say was a purple fountain grass. There's actually, I put 3 1-gallon purple fountain grasses in the same hole. And for those of you that have ever grown purple fountain grass before, you're probably laughing at me, because we have such a long growing season that even one of them will get huge. And it did get really, really big. 3 of these together was probably too much for this space. As you can see, I had to place a rod and secure it, tie it up so that it wouldn't flop, because it did start to lay on this plant that's right next to it. This is a Caryopteris. I actually have a couple Caryopteris in this area, and Caryopteris are one of my favorite perennials. They are just such a showstopper when they bloom in the late summer and early fall. They get covered, and I mean covered, in all different kinds of bees and butterflies. The show that they put on is truly spectacular. I'll show y'all how to prune that one here in just a second. Moving along, we have some dead Angelonia. This little green plant that you see right here is Greek oregano, and it will just need some very minor cleanup. Can probably honestly just snap it all off by hand. And if you're not growing Greek oregano just as like a ground cover or a pollinator plant, you're missing out, because it's so easy to care for, pretty much disease and pest free, makes big purple pinkish blooms in the summer that the bees go crazy for. And it just kind of like creeps along and covers the ground as it grows. I grew all that from seed, super low cost. There's some yarrow in here that's just kind of hanging on. More stackies. These are all coneflower. We'll cut those down to the ground. It's kind of hard to see because everything is so brown, but this is all a little stand of coneflower also that I grew from seed. And there's white swan echinacea in here, and also just your basic purple echinacea mixed together in here. I harvested some seeds from this patch and grew some more this winter. This is an Agastaki, a pink one. This is a brand new rose. As you can see, it did get a little bit bit by the cold that we had a couple weeks ago. This is from Heirloom Roses. It's a Savannah variety. You can see that tag right there. We got our bur oak right here, which grew by leaps and bounds last year because it was finally on regular irrigation. It was getting irrigated from a little pot that I had set up right here and hooked up to the drip, and so when the pot would get watered by the drip, the excess water would go through the bottom of the pot and give this bur oak regular water, and it loved that. It had its best year last year with that regular irrigation. Stackies. This is another kind of oregano. It's Italian oregano, and I've been super happy with this. It stayed green for so long. It obviously got a little bit burnt by that cold front that we had, but a lot of it still looks really good. I'll come in here and clean that up. Super tough, super drought tolerant, makes white blooms that the pollinators really go crazy for. Even when I just brush against it, it smells really good. I think that growing herbs in your garden is super underrated and not done often enough. Coming through this way, this is all Nepeta, also known as catmint. Excellent perennial for pollinators, y'all, and it is so tough and so pretty. All I'm gonna do is come back in here and take all of this dead old stuff, and I'll probably just break it off and leave it in place, because when I prune a lot of these back, I really just like to leave the dead stuff on the ground, and then I come back over it with wood chips and allow this to decompose back into my ground. There's no need to remove it, at least in my opinion, from your flower bed unless you have a disease or pest issue, and I don't deal with either of those things in this flower bed. Honestly, probably the only thing I will take out of the flower bed is this Gara right here, because it's just not going to lay nice and flat like I want it to when I come back with the wood chips to put on top of it. So I will probably take the old Gara away, but a lot of this stuff I'll just leave in place. This weird pile of sticks that you are seeing right now is a bridal wreath spirea, and I'm honestly kind of worried about the bridal wreath spirea because we had what is referred to as a false spring several weeks ago, right before our coldest weather of the year. And right before we got our coldest weather of the year, as you can see, this spirea was ready to go. Let me see if I can get any closer. If you see all those little tufty burnt brown things, those were green before we got that really cold wind chills below zero for us on that night. And I'm sure that y'all can see there is nothing to block the wind out here. We don't have any like wooded areas. There's no hills, there's no mountains, there's no buildings. It's very flat out here. And so when the wind comes through, the plants just have to really take the brunt of it unless they're protected by something else like an evergreen. And right here, they're just not. This bridal wreath spirea really took a significant hit. I'm hoping that it will still produce blooms, because you can kind of see that there's a little bit of green coming through, but bridal wreath spireas bloom on old wood. So I don't know if that cold front killed off my blooms for the season. And if it did kill my blooms for the season, I will be very disappointed, because the bridal wreath spirea is one of my favorite spring flowering shrubs. When it does flower, it just shines like a beacon in this space, and I've really been looking forward to it, honestly, for months, for it to bloom. So I hope that cold front didn't kill off all the blooms, but we will have to wait and see. I will keep you guys updated. Moving right along, this is a rose. Obviously, it's already been cut back for the season. This is a beautiful rose. It's like a violet, very vibrant, dark pinkish purple rose. It is so pretty and it does so well. It just blooms its head off all summer, honestly, even when we're super hot. And I would love to tell y'all the name of it, but I don't know it. When it does bloom, I'll make sure I capture some footage of it just in case any of y'all recognize it for me. more stackies. That spreads significantly just in its first year. They clump out and they tend to do that. Shasta daisies over there. And that's pretty much it for this space. So now that I gave you a quick look at what we have growing in here, I'm just gonna get after it and start cleaning it up, and I will walk you guys through when I'm done. Just was in a fight for my life on this grass. Look how big. Look how big. My goodness. It just kept going and going and going. I know some of y'all will probably say, oh, use hedge trimmers. I don't own hedge trimmers, so by hand, it is what it is. And I'm honestly not decided on whether I'll dig this out. I don't think I'm gonna dig it out. I think I'm gonna come in here and shear it all the way to the ground. And the reason for that is if I'm able to leave an annual's root system in the ground, I do. So things like angelonia, zinnias, celosia, things like that. A lot of times I'll just take them off at the top and let that root system decompose because it's improving the structure of my soil and feeding my soil while it decomposes. So if I can leave this purple fountain grass's root system in the ground, I probably will. But I will need to take all this stuff away because I could leave it in place, which is what I typically like to do when I cut things back. I like the chop and drop method. That's kind of what I meant earlier by I cut things back in an unusual way. Most of what I cut back, I leave in place. I just tuck it back under the plant so it can feed the soil. This, if I leave it in place, will probably wind up all over the yard and everywhere else, and I don't want to have to deal with it, so I probably will take all of this stuff to the compost pile. One thing I did want to show y'all a close-up of is how I cut back this Nepeta and how I'm going to leave a lot of this in place. You can see that it is already starting to push new growth from the crown of the plant. All of this dead stuff was growth from last year. These get really, really big. I don't know what kind of variety this is. I don't think it's a named variety like cat's pajamas or anything like that because it gets huge. I have one in my garden that gets, no kidding, like 4 feet across every year because it's been there forever. So I'm gonna come in and a lot of it I'll be able to do with my hands, but I'm just gonna be breaking it off and then trying to tear it into smaller chunks and then leaving it in place so that it can decompose and feed my soil underneath. You can see parts of the wood chips that I put on here last year and just in general, this really nice flaky, crumbly soil. So I'll come through here and clean it up like that, break it, tuck it back into the soil, and just get it all kind of spruced up so that this new growth can have lots of air and light. Oh, look. I actually forgot that I had sedum in here. I have some autumn joy sedum coming back up. Okay, my Nepeta is done, and I'm really trying to go plant by plant in this flower bed for you guys just because there's so many different perennials, and I want to show y'all how to cut each one back. So here's the Nepeta. We have taken away all the dead stuff so that we're just left with this fresh green growth, and all of this is the old foliage that I've just broken up with my hands or cut with my clippers into smaller pieces so that it can stay on the ground. And as I was going through here cleaning this up, I just saw tons of spiders and all kinds of cool stuff down in the soil, sheltering under all of this. I really want to leave all that in place so they can continue to shelter under that and it can continue to feed my soil. If you think about it, this is just more free mulch. Next, we're going to deal with this stand of Italian oregano that I have. So I got maybe like 11 or 12 4-inch Italian oregano plants that I put in kind of a drift this way through this flower bed. I absolutely loved them last year. They stayed green, they never wilted, they just performed really, really well. They bloomed, they attracted all the pollinators, and they're just a really cool plant. I really liked having them, but they obviously took a hit during that really, really cold wind. It just kind of came in here and burnt a lot of this foliage. So I'm gonna be cutting it back pretty hard. If you already had a really well-established Italian oregano plant that had gone extremely woody throughout the plant's structure, cutting really far into the wood can harm the plant. But this is this plant's second year, so I'm going to be fairly aggressive because I want it to regrow and stay just like nice and fresh and green and produce lots of blooms, lots of foliage. So I am going to be pretty tough with it and come in here and take quite a bit off. So let me get that done. Moving on from all of the oregano, which is now cut back, and you can see that I left all of the cuttings on the ground. You won't even be able to see those when I put down the wood chips here after I'm done. Here we have our echinacea, and this is a super simple cleanup. They just get cut off right at the ground. They're gonna come back from the base of the plant, and in fact, they may already be coming back from the base. Yeah, you can actually see some new growth already happening there. So we'll take those all the way down. I will leave the limbs on the ground just like this. I might even get, when it drops its seed, sometimes it will just kind of spread itself around like that. So I'll just leave everything in place. The birds can come by and feed on it if they want to. Lamb's ear doesn't require anything from me. That's good to go. I actually just stomped on it. This is a hyssop, or it's an agastache, and I actually just stepped on it and pruned it all in one go. So this was like this. This is an herbaceous perennial, meaning it dies all the way back to the ground every year. Doesn't need anything except for the top dead parts to be cut off of it. Looks like I have a couple here. And I'll leave those in place like I have everything else. Just break it down a little bit. So regarding this Caryopteris, I am actually going to take it down to about 18, 20 inches. This will bloom on new wood, so it's fine to cut it back that hard. It will actually respond really well to that. It may seem harsh, but it will be completely fine. It's not like your typical woody shrub where I'm trying to really get a certain form or shape to the shrub. This will come back like a huge bush every year. I can probably even cut it back harder than that. I'm not going to, it doesn't need it. 18 to 24 inches is plenty for this Caryopteris. Okay, I know this is kind of hard to see what I'm about to show you, but just stay with me. So this is a Caryopteris, this woody thing right here. And at some point during the season, several of these limbs laid down on the ground and sent out roots where they made contact with the soil. And there are probably a good half a dozen of these spots where I have an opportunity to get some free plants. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here with a cup of water and I'm going to clip these little fresh plants at the point behind where they have sent out new roots. You see that right there? That goes back towards the mama plant. That goes back out towards the terminal end of the branch. So I'm going to cut back here. I'm going to put them all in water for now, and then later on today I'll pot them all up. But it's so nice to just get a whole bunch of accidental free plants. These shrubs are easily $30 or $40 at the garden center where I shop. So pretty cool. Here it is, all finished up. Doesn't it look so much better with a little bit of mulch? Sorry about the background noise. We have some welding going on in the background, but everything is all covered up in mulch. Everything that I cut back is tucked up under the mulch. There's probably about 2 or 3 inches of wood chips on this flower bed at this point. So everything should be ready to go and good for spring. Here's one more angle. Everything that I cut back today is underneath this layer of wood chips, and it will just kind of rot away and improve my soil. I leave pretty much everything in place, and I know that some people may say, well, what if you are harboring over bad insects or bad bugs or whatever? I'm just not really worried about it. I've never had an insect problem in this bed, and to be honest, if I have a plant or a flower bed that gets so badly attacked by insects every year, I have bigger problems than the way that I cut back and mulch. I have some kind of imbalance where I'm not choosing the right plants for the right place. So this is my method for cutting back and mulching this bed in the spring. Let's go ahead and pot up those Caryopteris cuttings that we took. So that is going to do it for us for today. Is there any better feeling than a productive spring day as a gardener? I don't think it gets much better than that. My face is probably absolutely filthy. Hauling all that mulch really wore me out, so I am just really happy with everything that I got done today. Very productive day. Got that whole flower bed cut back and mulched, and I even got half a dozen shrubs out of it for free, that Caryopteris that rooted onto the ground. So if you have any questions or comments or feedback, just let me know in the comments below, and I will see y'all in the next one.